who's actually going to get the most out of a countertop espresso machine that also claims to froth milk, and who would be better off sticking with a simple drip brewer? If you're trying to decide whether the TRABVVIJSC coffee maker espresso machine is worth the price tag, you're probably weighing a few things: space on the kitchen counter, how often you'll actually use the steam wand, and whether you can tolerate the learning curve that comes with pulling a decent shot. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's dig into the everyday realities of this gadget, because buying a Barista grade machine that sits idle most of the week is a risk many of us have taken. First off, the core question is, do you need a separate espresso maker and a milk frother, or can you get by with a single-serve pod system and a small handheld frother? The TRABVVIJSC packs both functions into one unit, which sounds convenient on paper, but the real test is how well those two functions actually work together. I've spent a weekend setting up the machine, grinding beans, pulling a few espresso shots, and experimenting with milk froth for cappuccinos and lattes. The biggest surprise was how quickly the machine reaches temperature. Within a minute or two the boiler is at brewing pressure, and the overheat protection kicks in if you let it run too long. That safety feature is nice for peace of mind, especially if you're prone to walking away from the kitchen while a brew is in progress. If you're a coffee enthusiast who enjoys the ritual of grinding beans, tamping, and timing the extraction, this model can deliver a solid espresso base. The pressure gauge isn't a fancy digital readout, but the manual lever gives you enough control to produce a crema that looks respectable. In practice, the espresso itself hits the sweet spot. It's not overly bitter, and you get enough body to support milk froth without turning sour. I tried a straight shot, a macchiato, and a cappuccino. Each time the foam held its shape for a minute or two, which is sufficient if you're drinking it right away. That's where the "no more lukewarm coffee" claim holds up. The machine keeps the brew hot and the froth airy, so you don't end up with a flat latte. Now, let's talk about who should actually consider buying this. If you live in a small apartment and only make coffee a few times a week, the machine's footprint might feel too large. It sits on a standard 12-inch countertop space and needs a nearby outlet because the heating element draws a decent amount of power. For a family that drinks espresso daily, or a couple who likes to entertain friends with homemade coffee drinks, the dual-function design can be a real time saver. It also makes a decent gift for someone who already has a basic coffee maker but wants to step up to espresso without investing in a full-size commercial-grade unit. On the flip side, there are clear reasons to skip it. First, the milk frother is not a separate steam wand you'd find on a high-end machine. It's a built-in frothing nozzle that works best with cold milk and can produce a microfoam texture, but it struggles with soy or almond milks that have lower protein content. If you regularly drink dairy-free lattes, you might find the foam clumpy rather than silky. Second, the machine doesn't have a programmable shot timer, so repeatable consistency requires a bit of practice. If you're looking for a plug-and-play experience where you push a button and get the same shot every time, this model may feel a little Hansen. Practical strengths are easy to spot. The built-in overheat protection means you won't accidentally scorch the machine if you forget to turn it off, and the hot water reservoir is large enough for several cups before you need to refill. The froth wand, while basic, does a respectable job with whole milk enough to impress friends who aren't coffee connoisseurs. The machine also makes a decent gift presentation. The sleek black housing looks modern on a kitchen counter, and the included accessories, tamper, frothing pitcher, add a professional feel without extra cost. Weaknesses, however, become apparent after a few uses. The drip tray is shallow, so you'll need to empty it more often if you're making multiple drinks in a row. The stainless steel boiler, while durable, takes a minute longer to cool down after brewing, so you can't immediately switch from espresso to hot water for tea without a brief wait. Another hidden trade-off is noise. The pump is louder than a typical Bianta cup machine, which might be intrusive in a quiet apartment early in the morning. Finally, the lack of a built-in grinder means you'll have to buy a separate burr grinder if you want to consistently use fresh beans. Using pre-ground coffee can result in a weaker crema and more bitterness. From a value for money perspective, the TRABVVIJSC sits in a crowded mid-range market. You could spend a little less on a simple espresso press and buy a dedicated milk frother, or you could invest a lot.